Hello and welcome to Reportage. This is Danish bin Nabi. In today's segment of Reportage, I shall have a discussion about the book titled Jagdish Chandra Bose, A Reluctant Physicist by Sudipto Das, which is published by Niyogi Books. More from the author. Mr. Das, you have been a musician, and then all of a sudden you have come up with this brilliant book about this scientist. How is it possible that you being a musician, you come up with a book about a scientist? What drove you? What inspired you? And what basically was the main motivation and interest behind writing this book?
Um, okay. I play violin. So that is what about it. But I don't think I can claim that I'm a musician because I mean I'm not a professional musician. I am rather an amateur, music enthusiast. I learned violin when I was very young, and we have a small band here in Bangalore. We are more like music lovers. So I mean, it's little, I believe, embarrassing for me also to introduce myself as a musician because there are amazing musicians around me. And I have been writing since I think since 2008. My first book was published in 2013. So before this one, I wrote three fictions. So this is the first non-fiction, and which happens to be the biography of a scientist about whom Indians have almost forgotten, but about whom we should know. I think the new generation should be aware of him because though he lived more than a century back, but still his works and more than his work, his thought process and his philosophy is so much relevant in today's world that I feel it's important to resurrect this person.
So,
So that's the motivation.
who is this Jagdish Chandra Bose? Who is he basically?
Okay. So that is exactly why I thought of writing this book. I'll give you a small example. Like when the book was launched in Bangalore in the Bangalore Lit Fest, the book was displayed in a counter. So they had a this bookstore where all the books of all the delegates and all the panelists were displayed. So I went there to to check out whether the book was properly displayed. So somebody came, an IT engineer, like you see everywhere in Bangalore. He came. I mean, he took the book and he read the name, J- uh, Jagdish Chandra Bose, and then his friend was on the other side of the table. So he picked up the book and he asked, "Are yaar, ye kaun hai? Ye Jagdish Chandra Bose?" And then his friend who was on the other side of the table, उसने देखा बोलता है ये जगदीश चंद्र ये कोई चंद्रशेखर आजाद ऐसा कोई था ना देन हिज फ्रेंड ही टोल्ड अरे वो सुभाष चंद्र बोस है और ये चंद्रशेखर आजाद है और तो they are not related to this guy and then he told तो ये जगदीश चंद्र बोस कौन है right so that's the awareness right I mean as somebody who is an engineer and who is working in Bangalore right even that person is also not aware of who this guy is right so now if I tell you what he did I think like you will also realize that how incredible it is that we have forgotten. He is the co-inventor of radio. So does that I mean make any sense? Like he is the so all along we have read in our textbook that
But
that
people do
Marconi
not know
has
this
invented.
that he is the co-inventor of radio.
Yes, he's the co-inventor of radio, and it is not that it's a classified information. In the 1990s, there was enough investigation, forensic investigation, and then it was very conclusively acknowledged that he is the co-inventor of radio, as is Nikola Tesla. So Marconi is no longer the inventor of radio. There is no inventor of radio. There are a number of co-inventors, among which Nikola Tesla and Jagdish Chandra Bose are are sort of front runner, you can say, right? So an Indian is the co-inventor of radio.
So
Right. And
when was basically Mr. Bose born? Was it 1910 or 1920s?
so Bose was born long time back in 1858 and he
Oh,
died in 1937. So and again, just a just to let you know, uh, how much popular he was when he was alive. So Times of India did a survey in 1936, when when Jagdish Bose was still alive. A survey of the top few popular Indians, correct? And just okay, just if I ask you, like in the 1930s, like who do you think could have been the most popular Indians in the world? So just just if I ask you now, what would be your answers?
Obviously, Nehru Gandhi.
Obviously, no, okay, not Nehru. Gandhi was there. So one was Gandhi, one was Rabindranath Tagore, uh, and then we had C.V. Raman, because he had
Absolutely.
got the Nobel Prize in 1930. Yes, and then it was Radhakrishnan, and it was Jagdish Chandra Bose, right? So in 1936, so Nehru was not among the most popular Indians. The top five popular Indians at that time in 1930s: Gandhi, Tagore, Vivekananda, Radhakrishnan, and C.V. Raman, and of course Jagdish Chandra Bose, right? So these six people, right? And again, a little rewind in 1920s. Jagdish Chandra Bose was so immensely popular that when he gave a lecture in Geneva, Einstein had to, jostle, for the seat. So, the lecture room was so very crowded that a person like Einstein, who was at that time the most famous scientist in the world, was struggling to get a seat. And when he listened to Jagdish Bose, he was so very excited that actually he told to the reporters that, just for one of his discoveries, this guy should have a statue in all the European, colleges and universities, right? So that was the impact that this person had on somebody like Einstein. So it is 1926 when this incident happened, almost 100 years back. So now, we're sitting in 1924. So that was the level of popularity that he had when he was alive, correct? And so right? So why he has been totally forgotten from being the top few Indians, in the 1930s, to somebody about whom Einstein was so very excited, is like a fiction. And me and myself, being a fiction writer, having written the last three books as fiction, I feel that his story is more interesting than a fiction. It has amazingly interesting characters. It has everything. It has everything: ups and downs, suspense, betrayal, love, affection, passion, everything. Whatever you need in a story or in a good movie, you have everything in his life.
So you have also talked about his relationship with Rabindranath Tagore on the one hand and the Swami Vivekananda on the other. Kindly talk about it for the viewers. What was this relationship based on?
Yes. So he was Swami Vivekananda and him. They knew each other, but Vivekananda died very early. Swamiji died at the age of 39 in 1902, right? I think it was only around 4 to 5 years that Jagadish Chandra Bose and Vivekananda had known each other. But Tagore and Bose had known each other for a very long time because they were almost of the same age. Tagore was born in 1861, and Jagadish Chandra Bose was born in 1858. So Bose was just 3 years older than Tagore. And they also died almost at the same time. Jagdish Bose died in 1937, and Tagore in 1941. So their relationship was very long, and they used to address each other as friend. Like in Bangla, it's called bondhu, right? So like you address each other as friend. So both were highly influenced by each other, and I will just give you one small example about how Tagore and Bose were mutually influenced by each other. So sometime like during the 1890s, uh, when India was still under the foreign rule, and this feeling of deprivation, this feeling of being subjugated by a colonial ruler was gaining ground. And this feeling that India should be self-reliant, India should be independent. These feelings were germinating, right? But then it was not easy to suddenly arouse a huge country like India, right? Like I mean, if you see the dimension of India, and at that time India was even bigger, right? Because and that was the pre-partition India, right? So I mean, Tagore felt that more than any political movement, right? What was most important was to unite the entire country through, I mean, with some cultural basis, or I mean, with some cultural thread, right? Because at that time, if you see the, I mean, though it was I mean, an Indian empire of the British rule, but still, I mean, there was not much of interaction between the different parts of India, right? I mean, that the entire India, or the Marathi, the Punjabis, the Rajputs, the Bengalis, the South Indians, that they all belong to the same flock, or they all are united by some cultural or civilizational thread, was not very apparent, right? So what he did, uh, Tagore wanted to create something, which could unite, which could bring everybody together, right? So that's where, I mean, Bose also collaborated. So they went around reading, the various mythologies, folklore, and stories, historical stories about various people, and also about various parts of India. And that's how uh, a collection of poem, called Katha. In Bangla, it's called Katha, which means the fable. And there we have stories from Shivaji, like from Guru Tegh Bahadur, from Guru Gobind Singh, from Kabir, a lot of stories from Buddha, right? So he collected stories from all across India, and the common thread of all the stories from the various parts of India, from north to south, from east to west, was love and sacrifice and dharma, right? So that was the first literary work, or even the first work in modern time, where the entire length and breadth of the country was attempted to be united on a cultural basis. So that was the level of collaboration between Jagdish Bose and Tagore. And of course, there are, when Tagore was forming, creating Shantiniketan, he took a lot of help from Jagdish Bose. They, I mean, discussed a lot, and Shantiniketan was also one of the first, indigenous universities, right, which was 100%, you know, I mean, like the Gurukul, right? So 100% residential, right? And it was created with all the Indian knowledge system, right? So I mean, they kept on collaborating. Now about Swami Vivekananda, again, Swami Vivekananda used to see Jagdish Bose as a sort of person who could prove the Indian knowledge system, or who could prove the Advaita Vedanta, or the Vedantic philosophies through science. Because I mean, Jagdish Bose himself was also very spiritual. Like he was adept in the Vedas, in Upanishads, right? And this entire concept of Advaita Vedanta, which Swami Vivekananda, I mean, went about spreading across the world, was also very close to Jagdish Bose. So Vivekananda saw him as somebody who could, resurrect the ancient Indian science, and also, prove the Indian spirituality, or Indian beliefs through modern science. So, I mean, there are a lot of interesting stories between them. I mean, I've
You
covered it,
you
some
you
of them
you
in the.
you talked about how he was a co-inventor for the radio. What are his other contributions?
Yes. So one is the radio, and then again, another major, I believe, contribution was that he was the first person to have used a frequency which is now used in 5G. So for almost 120 years, nobody used that frequency for wireless communication. But now again, the frequency which 5G uses to cater to the high speed. Uh, I mean, which is known as the gigahertz frequency, was first used by Jagdish Chandra Bose in 1890s. So that is again another, I think, major contribution, right? So if you think wireless and 5G, right? I mean, these two are, I mean, something that the entire world is dependent on now. I mean, if you take away wireless, if you just think, right, and for the last 100 years, right, I mean, since radio has been invented, if you take out wireless, certainly the modern life becomes very primitive, right? So his work is at the genesis of 5G, and sorry, and at the genesis of wireless, and of course 5G, which is the future of telecommunication, also has a lot of things from Bose's work. So that is one. And then another major thing that he did, he holds the first patent in the world for a semiconductor device. So, I mean, what is a semiconductor device? It is actually, all the electronic chips, I mean, that you see. I mean, if you open up a phone, right, then like we'll be seeing a lot of chips, right? So every chip is actually a semiconductor device. So he is the first person in the world to have patented one semiconductor device. And if you see, the entire electronics is now built up of semiconductor devices, right? So when there is no life without electronics, there is no life without wireless, and both the things, I mean, the genesis of both the things is this guy called Jagadish Chandra Bose, right? So I think now you know how
I
important.
completely get your point. Before I wind up this discussion, this short discussion, let me put one last question to you. Have we as society and in preserving such personalities, such lives, have we completely failed in preserving these lives?
Okay, I would say one of the reasons that Jagadish Bose is now being talked about, and there is a lot of awareness, is of course some initiative by this present government. In fact, I mean, in the last 1 year, three biographies of Jagadish Bose have been published. So mine is the third one, right? So suddenly there is a sort of big interest among everybody, and I think the present government is quite good in resurrecting Indian personalities, right, who have been marginalized or who have been forgotten. So I think I wouldn't say that the government is not doing their job. Yes, the government should do more, but at least for Jagadish Chandra Bose, I mean, there have been a lot of conferences. In fact, last year there was one complete seminar, one complete conference, which was done by the MeitY, which is the Ministry of Electronics and IT, only on Jagadish Bose, right? So I think the present government is doing a lot, and also not only government, even in private sphere also, right? This OTT culture, I think, has done a lot of good. Like, I think without this Rocket Boys series, I think a lot of people might not have known the contribution of these two guys called Rumi Jahangir Bhabha and Vikram Sarabhai. We knew of them, but I think this awareness is growing. So a lot
What
of people will
was
come
it?
up.
Was it a deliberate attempt by the previous governments not to get these people, these scientists or politicians, the
Well,
limelight they needed?
that is not very easy to say. Yes, the previous governments
Or
were
wasn't it a
not.
deliberate attempt? They just went, they were just
It
sidelined.
it could be right. Yes, it could be right. I mean, and there are enough reasons to say that all the previous governments, right? I mean, whether it's in the state or in the center, right? They were not very excited about everybody, right? And as long as you belong to certain category,
Is this government okay with everyone?
no, see, I mean, this government is, again, I believe they also have their own follies, right? I mean, they also, I mean, it is not that they are also very impartial. So in this particular case, in the case of Jagdish Chandra Bose, or might be in the case of, Abhi Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel or PV Narasimha Rao, or a lot of people who have been marginalized earlier have been highlighted now. That is true. But again, this government has also, I mean, not been very impartial when it comes to many other people, right? So I believe every government has its follies and virtues and vices.
Mr. Das, I completely get your point. And I thank you very much for talking to me. Let me hold your book once again for the audience so that it reaches maximum people. And I do hope that people buy and read your book. Thank you very much for talking to
Thanks a lot.
Reportage. Please subscribe to our channel Reportage and press the bell icon to remain updated.